So my first question is coming from the audience. How did you discover TubeBuddy? So Trina, I know how I did, and I know how Rob did, but how did you actually discover us?
Holy cow. I think it was probably, I was just trying to figure out how to get better research. I don't want to say what the date was or what the year was, because honestly, since I've had kids, the past 5 years just really kind of seem like one. And honestly, the past 5 months in quarantine literally seems like 10 years. So I think I just was looking for a better way to research my content and found TubeBuddy, I think, through search on YouTube, really.
Nice. That's what we want to happen.
Exactly. And that's what I'm hoping other people are saying. So let us know, how did you find TubeBuddy? We actually have a question here from Thrasher Builds, and they're asking, is there a pro TubeBuddy for iPhone? So there is a TubeBuddy mobile app, which gives you a lot of features. There is a pro version of TubeBuddy. So the main difference is that the mobile app is just a standalone thing, but if you get TubeBuddy Pro, which gives you access to all the extension tools, you get not only the mobile app, but everything you can do on a computer with TubeBuddy. So that would be that. So we're going to have guests coming in interchangeably to the stream as we go on. But again, mostly we are going to be answering your questions as they come in. So Rob, if you see anything that you want to bring in, feel free. Yep. And it's great to see some of our regular. Yeah. One person asked, do you think creating on a mobile device is enough to get started? So I'll go ahead and answer, and then we'll kind of pass it around if that's all right.
Perfect.
I think that the cameras we have on mobile devices are stronger than a lot of people give credit to. Like, we have 4K capable recording devices in our pockets at all time, and that is incredible. And I think that if you don't have camera gear, your phone is a great place to start. I would recommend, if you want to invest in your gear, look into getting external lighting or a microphone, but I definitely think a camera is super usable. What about you two?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think I really try to teach people, get started as easy as possible. We all know how tech can be. So the more tech you get with your equipment and you worry about it, you're going to just have more hurdles between you and producing content. So if it's as easy as grabbing your phone and talking to your phone, simple, gets you started, gets that process, and starts exercising kind of that muscle of creating content, getting better at content. And like I said, just really minimizes any kind of obstacle or hurdle for you to even get started.
Yeah, I agree. I think, you can definitely start with your phone. And like what Trina said there, I think if you have all the cool gear right from the beginning without really understanding how to even make a video and all those things, then it becomes more of an excuse not to make videos, because you're like, I need to figure out my camera first, or this microphone and how this all works. And so it just kind of delays, it's just another excuse that you can use to tell yourself to not make videos.
So this next question I see commonly is from Fit with Fahad again, and it says, does anyone know why when I rank for keywords after doing keyword research, in a few days I tend to lose rank? So there is a couple of reasons, but I'm curious what you guys think on why people tend to lose their search positions in YouTube search.
I think the statistic is pretty crazy how many new videos are uploaded in literally an hour on YouTube. And so if you aren't making sure not just your keywords, but your title, your thumbnail, and your content is good, that people are clicking on it and watching it, that's really where you're going to tend to lose potentially that ranking, because there's other videos popping up every single minute of every single day that could potentially be getting a better click-through rate or getting better audience retention. So it's really, you want to be thinking about the entire video as a package and not just little pieces of it if you want to continue to stay at the top.
I fully agree. And I think that that's something, when it comes to that full package, a lot of people, they'll be like, I made a great video, but it's like, oh, I didn't take the time for my thumbnail or my SEO. Rob, how do you make sure you have a great package when it comes to search?
Yeah, so I think, really what you guys just said, I think, YouTube, if you're trying to get to number one, if you get to the top of the search, that means you bump somebody down, right? And so yeah, I think, the watch time and all those things. So if in the beginning you're getting a lot of views, I think YouTube does push out new videos a little bit more. There's a new tag and all those things. And so after a few days, maybe depending on your video, so one of the things you want to look at is, are people watching your videos? Are they watching as much of your videos as you actually like? And if the watch time is quite low, then that might be one reason why you're losing rank, because there might be a new video that has, longer watch time, better stats in that sense. So yeah, that's what I would say there.
Yeah, and one of the best things about YouTube, and a lot of creators don't know this, is they really try to help newer creators with, as you mentioned, Rob, that new tag. So let's just look up something that is currently trending, which is if you go to Keyword Explorer through TubeBuddy, we can all see there are a bunch of different trends. So I'll look for something that is currently trending that I think we could probably easily talk about. So since this is a great, I think, example, right? So when there are a lot of people looking for something, so Legend of Korra is something that's trending, and that should be pretty good to talk about because there should be videos. So you can see there's established videos, right? But whenever something new happens, and you were talking about a new video here, Fit with Bahad, like you can see this is established. So there's not that many new pieces of content. But let's talk about something more relevant, right? What is something that people are talking about a lot? So if we look at get views on YouTube, which I think is a topic maybe one or two of us have talked about, right? So you'll see that it's a little more the same, where it's not as competitive. It's more like hard line. But when we talk about something that's brand new, like cutting edge, that's going to be where that new tag tends to really come into play, right? So Fahad here is with fitness. So fitness has very new pieces of content coming out every day. So if you click on, like, if we were just to search up fitness, because some people are asking questions about the keyword scores, right? Well, fitness has a lot of new pieces of content, and you can see it here by the new tag. This is YouTube giving this piece of content a little boost in rankings, trying to help creators do better. Now, someone asked, what is the difference between the weighted and unweighted? And I think this is actually super important to say live. And I'm curious what you think, Trina and Rob. I kind of know your answer, but maybe it has changed. But when you look at a term, where is your first go-to, Trina, when it comes to how you're looking at the Keyword Explorer? Where does your first place you look for?
I'm actually looking at monthly searches. So how often it is actually being searched. I want to make sure this is a topic that people are searching for before I even decide to create the video, because if nobody's searching for it, how are they going to find me? So that's probably one of the first things that I look at.
Exactly. And that's where I look too. The question specifically was asking what's the difference between weighted and unweighted. The weighted score, as you can see here, is specific to your channel. So when Rob, Trina, and I look up a keyword, in this case, fitness, Trina's going to have a different score than me because her channel performs different than me. Similarly, Rob will. So Rob might have 80 million views of video, and Trina and I are like, what did you do? But Rob may have, cheater. Rob may have like 80 million views of video. So for him, his weighted score is going to be much different than Trina and I's are, right? So it really is just a different way to look into how things are working for your specific YouTube channel, because not every channel performs the same. I'm sure that if Trina, Rob, and I all went after the same keyword, we'd all have varying different results. Now, Trina, you said you look at the number of monthly searches estimate, right? Besides that, is there anything else you look at here?
Yeah, so I like to really look at this. Obviously, this is where I start in my research, but I don't let it make or break my decision. If I feel I've got good content that maybe even my audience has been asking for me, and if it's saying it's poor, I may still try to go after that particular topic, but I want to see, okay, I like to actually go to the results and see the results tab to see who's there. I like to look at their thumbnails and their titles. And I'm also looking at search volume as well in the score analysis to see, again, even if there isn't a specific number of search, where is the possibility for me to get found when I create a video? Because again, I want to make sure I'm creating videos that are going to drive a new audience to my channel.
Sure. And I think that makes a lot of sense. Speaking of getting found while creating new videos, is that Nick Nimmin? Hey, Nick, how are you doing?
Everybody, hope everybody's having an awesome day. today? Hope everybody's doing fantastic. How's everybody doing? Everybody doing good? Everybody doing great?
Doing great, man.
Yeah, can't complain.
Cool. Nice to see you guys.
Answering some really good questions, just how people use TubeBuddy. So Nick, kind of to give you the same question I just gave Trina there, when you're looking at the keyword explorer here, what is the thing you go to first? Like, what is the stat you look at first?
The first thing for me is I'll actually look to see what is being related. Like I look at that because I start looking for like, is there a better way that I can say this? Is there, you know, something else that I'm not thinking about that TubeBuddy can show me in terms of another way that somebody might be looking for what it is that I'm trying to package up?
Exactly. And I think a lot of people don't know this, but video searches actually comes from the same thing as if you were typing here, which is based on what people are looking for on YouTube in general. So that's actually a great point of information, because a lot of people are like, I have a keyword, but I have no idea what people want to make. And I'm like, if you go to Keyword Explorer, just look slightly to the right. So I think that's actually a really great point.
Yeah, so that also looking to just do a quick glance on the web searches as well, because that's also, you know, important. Because like if you're trying to rank something for search, you might as well try to rank for, you know, like you might as well try to get it on search engines as well as, you know, the YouTube search engines. Because if you're not, you know, at least doing a little bit of research into that, you know, you could be missing opportunities as well. So, you know, when people are using TubeBuddy, they should definitely be popping up you know, all of those different related options. They should be looking in the actual, you know, for the web search as well. And they should be going in and manually researching also. You know, it's like, you know, once you have the tool and you get the information from the tool and you're like, okay, this is what I think I'm going to go for, then go and actually look and see who it is that you're competing with as well. Like literally go and search whatever it is, the things that you're trying to rank your videos for, and see, you know, hey, what other people are making this content? What type of activity are they getting in their content? Can I make an assessment on if maybe those views are coming from search, or are they coming from somewhere else based on, you know, the type of channel they have or how big the channel is, and, you know, things like that. And also, so you can look for opportunities on if you can make something that's better, can make it longer in terms of like, hey, I can keep somebody's attention. So if I make this longer, then because of that, there's a chance that I might be able to get more watch time per impression than them, as long as I can be competitive with my click-through rate. So, you know, looking at those sorts of things is also really important, and clicking in and watching some of the videos. Like this is the suck part of, you know, doing keyword research is, you know, having to spend that extra time. Like, hey, I'm going to click on some of the videos. I'm going to watch them. You know, maybe their hooks are all weak. And then you can go in, you can just create a better, you know, a better hook that gives a better promise. So when people click on your video, you know, they're going to be, you know, likely to stick around to what it is that you're doing compared to some of the others.
Exactly. And I think what you mentioned, you know, on how to get people watching longer, one of the things is a better hook. You know, that's just something, and that's just that value in that first 10 seconds. A lot of people, especially in those first 10 seconds, what I'll find is they'll be like, hey guys, I'm so sorry I haven't put another video. You know, Nick, I promise you, once I just drink some water and I decide to file my underwear drawer, and then I'll iron my socks, then we'll get to the point of the video. And the problem is you spend 30 seconds talking about nothing, right? So this question comes from Halof, hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly. And they say, how do you make sure that your audience watches longer in a smarter way? Nick, you were talking about hooks, but does anyone else have other tips to how to get people to watch longer?
I think it's really important to study your audience retention graphs. If you are not looking at those, there's no way you're going to make your content better or make it longer. You've really got to see the trends. Is it even a word you're saying that's causing people to leave? Is it your intro, like how you introduce yourself, that's causing people to leave? Really studying your analytics and knowing it like the back of your hand. This is why people leave your video. That's how you're going to be able to start making those longer videos and creating content that people will want to watch longer as well. So without looking at that piece of data, it's going to be really hard to create better, longer videos.
Because you're winging it. Like if you're not, you know, following her advice, you're literally just winging it and hoping that people watch your videos for a longer period of time, instead of looking and saying, you know, where are people falling off? Do they fall off when I talk for a longer period of time without having anything else on the screen? Do they fall off if I have stuff on the screen for too long? Do they fall off, like Trina was saying, you know, when I use certain words or when I overuse certain words, if I'm putting in a lot of filler and things like that? You know, you start to identify patterns with your audience over a period of time and how they respond to what it is that you're doing. And if you're not paying attention to that, you're literally just like throwing it out there and just hoping, you know, okay, here's this one. I hope people are going to watch this one longer.
Yeah. I
What
think
about
also,
you, Rob?
Yeah, so for me, I do a lot of tutorial videos on my personal channel, right? And so I've learned that my introduction used to be really, really way too long. Like people would leave before I even get to the actual like tutorial part. And so I've gone down to like maybe 30 seconds for an introduction, and then I get into the actual meat of the tutorial. And then I don't know if it was Nick or Trina, somebody said like, let's say you have 5 points that you want to share. Make the first 1 or 2 like really quick, not too long, but really good, but like your best 2 that like really have a ton of value. So then they were like, hey, those are 2 really good, solid tips. I'm going to stick around for more. And so that's been, not just like scripting or bullet pointing, but actually sort of front loading the tutorial. That's worked. That's helped like increase the watch time.
Yeah, and I think
one thing that's also been helpful for me is starting, like if you're like, I'm going to show you 5 things or 10 things, starting with the numbers and letting the numbers fade as you go through the video. So it's like, here's 1, here's 2, here's 3. The next one is, and then this one that's coming up next, you're absolutely going to love. It's, X, Y, Z. And basically just start letting the numbers fade away to where you transition from the numbers to, whatever you use as the bridge to get to the next one, so that people, aren't connected like, oh, here's number 9. Let me just skip real quick to see what 10 is. And then I'm out of here. Or at 10, that's what it is. So I'm out of here. So, at least experiment with that towards the, the last half of your video.
Yeah, and what you guys do really well too, I've been paying attention, guys, is you guys kind of like, you guys put this little sprinkle of like a, wait till the end, right? I'm going to share some crazy thing or like a bonus tip or something. Wait till the end. I'm going to share, like a review even, like I'll see Justin Brown. He's like, hey, wait till the end. I'll tell you which one I like best, which microphone I like better kind of thing. So people are like, you open a loop. So now I'm going to stick around. So.
Yeah, and a subtle way to do that also is just like, and right here in a second, I'm going to show you, X, Y, Z, to where it's just kind of, you're just kind of leading along without literally telling them to watch until the end. It's just kind of, right here in a second, I'm going to show you, whatever, or I'll show you that part right here in a bit, and you just kind of open the whole thing up that way. Also, just a subtle way to grab them by the ears and pull them through.
Yeah, and keeping the end in mind, like avoid letting them know this is over. Like, don't say in summary or in conclusion or to wrap up, because as soon as they hear that word, they're gone. That's such a really important part at the end of your video to get them to watch another video. So I really make sure when I'm planning my content, if they're going to watch this video that I'm filming right now, what makes sense in the viewer's journey to watch next, so that if I go through 10 steps or 10 tips and I'm at tip 10, I'm going to want to make sure I transition smoothly into, now this video on your screen is going to help you ABC, watch that next to take it to the next level or something, to then get more views on that video and to create that binge session on YouTube. But if you're telling them that video is over, they're gone.
That's such an art though. It's like so hard. I think I heard you guys say that, and I'm like, when I bullet point now, I'm just like, okay, how do I not say, well, there you go, guys, like things like that.
Well, the thing is that goes against the whole like teaching thing, because when you're teaching people things, like you're supposed to summarize, so you have that kind of built in, and then you try to remove that out of your brain for videos, but like Trina was talking about, just dropping it on them. So it's like, I don't even know the end's coming, and then bam, all of a sudden I'm being recommended another video. There's in-screen elements on the screen, pointing them directly to something else that you want them to watch. Yeah, that's definitely a win.
Yeah, it's really hard it's like hard not to say like, all right, guys, I'm going to land the plane now. And
well,
so I think that's how you,
I think that's being the shepherd of your own content, right? Like you're guiding the audience, right? And I think one thing, it is that natural teaching instinct to also say, and in conclusion, in summary, right? But I think the beautiful thing you can do also is like, sometimes you can leave them wanting more. And sometimes I'm like, I have another point I could add, but that's a whole new video, but you're going to have to watch that one next week or in the next time I upload, right? So it's like finding ways to, I call it cliffhangers, because that's what I try to do, leave them on wanting more. Because I feel like if they come to a video and are like, well, I got everything I needed. Bye, Rob. Then they feel like they've gotten everything they can get. But, you talked about leading them wanting more. So one person has a question. This is a question I see very frequently, and I'm curious how everyone's going to respond. What if you have a good thumbnail, but it isn't reaching a wide audience? So I want to do a screen share later, so stay around. bringing back what we talked about. But what do you guys think when someone's like, I have a great thumbnail, but I'm not getting views? What is your initial thoughts on that?
My initial thought is that if you think that you have a great thumbnail, but you are not getting people clicking on it, because if you're not getting impressions, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's just the thumbnail. Like there's a bunch of different things that it could be. That doesn't just mean that it's your thumbnail. It could also be your title. It could be bad timing. It could be that the actual content didn't get the response that that you think that it should have got, or that their system thinks that you should have gotten. But like if you think that your thumbnail is good, but people aren't actually clicking on your thumbnail, and you can see that in your click-through rate, and compare that to the impressions that you typically get on your videos, or at least the ones that you got on that video. Like if people aren't clicking on it, then you thinking that it's good doesn't, like, you're actually holding yourself back in that situation, because you're using your opinions on if you think it's good or not, which you have to kind of do that a little bit. You have to lean on intuition in order to be able to just, make something and publish it. But if you are looking at if you're looking at it like, hey, YouTube isn't, or people aren't clicking on this, and they're not clicking on it in error because it's a good thumbnail. In reality, the problem isn't that they're not clicking on it because there's something wrong. It's that it's not as good of a thumbnail as you think that it is. So, a lot of people, when they're making thumbnails, they think that it has to be this beautiful masterpiece work of art thing. And in some cases it does, but in a lot of cases, like you need to focus way more on the effectiveness of the thumbnails than you're making than like the gradients that you're putting on them, or the specific, colors that you're putting. Because, in some cases, depending on the content that you're making, people typically will say that, you need to make sure that you're using like bright and vibrant colors, because that's typically, what typically works on the platform for a lot of types of content. However, it's important to make sure that that's a good fit for what it is that you're doing as well, which is where TubeBuddy comes in, where you can actually test, thumbnails against each other, to where you can really start fine tuning what specifically works for the people that YouTube is showing your content to on the platform. Because at the end of the day, what you think is a good thumbnail, that gets you to publish, right?
Yeah.
That gets you to the publish point. But then once you cross that threshold, so to speak, then you have to rely on data at that point to say, okay, maybe I need to make some changes here because people aren't clicking on this way that I think that they should. And that could be one of the things that's hurting my click-through rate. But another thing that you have to think about is, and I tend to blab, so I'll shut up right here in a second. Another thing to think about is that when you are looking at your thumbnail, sometimes your thumbnail might be okay, but your title's actually hurting it. So because of that, you need to think of the entire package. What is it that people are seeing from the outside? How clear is it that they are, what it is that they're going to get when they click on that? How clear is it that they can understand at least something that you're trying to highlight about what's going on in the video, or the value that they'll get out of it, or the reason that they should click on it? Like, you need to make sure that you're identifying those specific things in terms of what exactly is it on my thumbnail and my title that I think would be a reason for somebody to click on this, and define those things. Because if you can't define it, if you can't look from the outside at your thumbnail and your title, and you can't define this should get somebody to click, or this should get somebody to click, if you can't define it, you can't expect people to naturally just, respond to it if you can't even identify what that thing is yourself. But you definitely need to make sure you're looking at the package as a whole, not just looking at your thumbnail, not just looking at your title, but looking at the two together and how they work together in order to win the click for you.
Yeah, and I think, you're talking about that whole package, looking at everything as a whole. Well, we're bringing in someone who has the whole package. Daniel, welcome to the stream.
Hi.
That's something about using the word package when you bring me in. I don't know if that was appropriate. You may have monetized the stream right there.
I said you have
a
the whole package, and Daniel just takes it to a weird place.
Daniel's
sorry. Like, I want to get demonetized. You can't be here.
The whole live stream just went down about 3 notches the minute my name was brought on board.
Yeah, family friendly until Daniel shows up.
Right.
Yeah.
Like your children. So where are we at? What are we talking about? Sorry, I was wrestling my way into the stream.
No worries. Daniel was trying behind the scenes to get in, but we're talking about this person. GMW Gamer says that they have a good thumbnail, but it isn't reaching a wide audience. And we were just asking, what do you think that means before, like, going even deeper? What do you think can stop a thumbnail from performing?
I also think, I was thinking you really need to think about that viewer, like who is watching your content, because my thumbnail is going to be totally different than for my audience than, say, for Nick or Daniel or Rob, because I'm talking a lot to female business owners. And so a lot of my thumbnails, what I've come to realize after testing on TubeBuddy, like small things at a time, is my audience kind of responds more to an Instagram type selfie look because they're used to Instagram and they're migrating more to YouTube now. So they tend to be attracted more towards that Instagram look that they would see in the feed of Instagram, as opposed to, you know, those bright saturated colors on YouTube. So you also, I think, have to keep in mind, who are you creating content and who's that end watcher? What are they going to be clicking on?
And that also helps you cater everything it is that you're doing towards them. Like when you know who it is that you're making the content for, then everything it is, the language that you're using in your thumbnails and the specific things that you're doing to grab their attention, and in the video content itself, you cater everything it is that you're doing towards that specific, you know, person or group of people. And just by doing that by itself, you can get better results.
Yeah, exactly. And
Excellent.
I think
excellent tip there, Trina.
Yeah. And I think, you know, knowing that audience is so important, and knowing what you're designing the thumbnail to do. Some people are targeting search, but they make a thumbnail that's like, you won't believe this. And maybe that does better than suggested, right? Because search has a specific mindset when people are going in. And a lot of people don't know that you can actually target based, like a lot of the videos we make at TubeBuddy is search focused first, right? Because that's where we get a majority of our traffic. A lot of our viewership, like most of us here, have search-based channels, and also trying to understand that where people are coming from to find your content is going to have different reasons on why people will click. Because if I just have a face like this and it has nothing to do with what they're searching for, they may not do as well as if that shows up in the browse feed. So it's understanding there's different traffic sources. And I said earlier we were going to show this. We're going to figure out what happens with 5 people on the screen. I've never done it. So basically, if you guys are wondering how you can show off your click-through rate or see where people are, like where your impressions are coming from, the thing you can do is you go to reach under analytics, then go to impressions click-through rate. It's a 2.8 because our live streams, as much fun as we have in them, they always help make our click-through rate overall not the best. But we don't look there. We focus on see more under here. And then you go to traffic source, and you can understand how your thumbnails are performing in each different area, right? So for example, our thumbnails in search have about a 5.9% click-through rate. Our thumbnails, when they see them in a playlist, has a 3.4. And it's understanding, if you're targeting search, how is your thumbnail performing in search? If you're trying to get more views than suggested, how is it doing when it's suggested against other people? A lot of the times, apparently I can update my Adobe, but a lot of the times people, like what they'll do is they'll be like, I have 100% click-through rate, and then I go in and they have 1 impression, right? So it's understanding, where is YouTube serving your thumbnail and how are people reacting to that? So if you're targeting that search, how are they reacting when you have targeted search? So I think that's important, especially if you, I think you said it very well earlier, Nick, is sometimes, and I've been guilty of this, you think you have the best thumbnail you ever made and the audience hates it. And then you just kind of feel like, well, what do I know? So, right. And that's part of the process. And
sometimes you also put all this effort into making something to where you're like, oh yeah, you know, I haven't done this type of thumbnail before. So let me put something like this together. I'm going to spend all this time, you know, putting it together, and it's going to be like cool. And I'm going to put all these little subtle things in there that I think maybe some people will pick up on, whatever. And then you get it, you publish the video, and it just tanks. And it's just like, well, it's not, you know, you messed up in terms of, you know, you made something that your folks didn't respond to, regardless of the time you spent. Sometimes, you know, less is more. In a lot of cases, less is more.
Exactly. And I think that's a struggle as a creator. So how do you guys handle, and this is a question we got earlier, how do you balance creating what you want to create with what the audience wants to see from you? How do you handle and balance that out?
I'm a YouTube help person because that's what my audience wanted to see from me. So like on my YouTube channel, like I was making, you know, different types of content. I was doing YouTube stuff, but I was also doing like how to stay productive when you're working at a coffee shop, you know, how to, you know, motivate yourself to work and that kind of thing. And then an SEO video for, you know, how to rank videos in search, because I was doing really good at that at the time. I made that, and then people were like, wow, this is great. Could you make more of these? Okay. And then I started making more of those, right? And then, you know, it just kept going, video after video after video. People really started responding to that stuff. So I started, you know, giving people more of what it was that they, you know, what it is that they wanted from me. So, you know, I know that there's this passion side of YouTube about, you know, make the stuff that you're passionate about, and, you know, just do the things that you care about, and everything will be great. But I'm also a big fan of if you have something that you enjoy, it doesn't have to be the thing that you enjoy the most in your life. But if it's the thing, if it's something that you enjoy and you're like, yeah, this is pretty cool. And an audience is like, hey, we want you to do this and we want you to do this and we want you to do this. And you can serve them in a better way by catering what it is that you're doing towards them. I'm a huge fan of that. I mean, it's customer service in a way, right? Because you're putting out the content. That content is a product of sorts. And, when you are catering things towards that audience, I mean, it's sort of, like customer service. So that's my motor mouthy thoughts.
No worries. Anyone else have anything they say when it comes to how do you deal with making what you want to make versus what the audience wants to make?
I'd say, what is your goal? Is your goal to grow a YouTube channel? Then 100% focus on the numbers and the data and what's driving you traffic. But if you have a different goal, like this is just what you want to do for fun and you don't care about the numbers, then do that. But you have to really think, you have to know what your end result is if you're going to reverse engineer getting there. So I would say decide what that is going to be, and that's going to really help you figure out what you're going to create for yourself versus what you're going to create for your audience versus what you're going to create to grow a channel.
Very fair.
Balance.
In all things. So the next question comes from Anniefax TV, and they're saying, why do I have so few impressions on my videos? So this question is asking impressions. What do you guys recommend if someone, is targeting search or they're trying to do something? How do people, in your opinion, get more impressions? What do you recommend if people don't have a lot of impressions on their videos?
I'll let somebody else go because I've just been like
Daniel's been pretty quiet.
Yeah, let's hear from Daniel.
But I'll take it if nobody's gonna say anything. I'm going.
I'll let you go, Nick. I don't want to get
warning.
hey, those lips get flapping, and I'm way over here. I'm close to you on the bottom of the channel.
So if you're not getting impressions on what it is, okay, go ahead, Daniel.
This is why I work with D.
Oh.
Impressions are a really simple thing, man. Impressions are all based. The way that the YouTube works, the paradigm is people complicate it. YouTube tries to understand the audience and which videos serve those audience members. It's not about bringing people to your videos. It's about bringing your videos to people. So they spend all of their time trying to understand the viewer. If you make content that serves that viewer and that YouTube puts it in front of a few people, right? Everyone thinks impressions has to be this big number. Like, how do I get 1 million impressions? How do I get 1 billion impressions? If you can make content that just connects with a few people, YouTube starts to learn about that content and sees which viewers that content is appropriate with. So your best bet for getting more impressions is start by making content that connects with your target audience. Because if it does, if it gets a good click-through rate, if people seem to enjoy it, if it gets good velocity, if it has a good average view duration, because the entire modus operandi of YouTube is based upon expected watch time per impression. So if you can make videos that actually produce a decent amount of expected watch time per impression, you'll get more impressions. It's as simple as that. It's a mathematical equation. YouTube doesn't understand quality. They understand how much people react, engage, or watch your content. So get them to do that, and you'll get more impressions.
Absolutely. And one thing I like what you said, and YouTube says this, is that they're like an impression is when a person sees your stuff. Here's a visual representation, right? I got 2 books for you. I recommend you pick up both of these. But here's the idea, right? There are 2 thumbnails, these 2 books in front of you. YouTube is showing them. When it is shown to a user for a second, that counts as an impression. YouTube will be comparing these 2. If people click on this one or watch this video, then that one wins. If they watch this one wins. So people tend to overcomplicate it because they don't. I get someone was asking, but what is an impression? It's just when YouTube shows your video's title, thumbnail to a user on any device for at least a second, right? So it's when you understand, you talked about serving your audience. When YouTube is giving an impression, it's trying to help your video by surfacing it or showing it to the most relevant people who watch your content. And then
another thing,
go ahead.
And another thing too to keep in mind with that is when it does come to your impressions and how they're trying to generate as much watch time per impression as possible, you can have a really high click-through rate, but not a lot of watch time accumulated on the video. And that can get you, a lot of watch time per impression. You can also have where people, don't click on your video as much, but they watch it for a longer period of time. And then you can also get a lot of watch time per impression that way. So because of that, if you're in a situation to where you're not getting that many impressions, typically it just means that you're not able to, you're still in the process of learning how to make content from the outside that people will click on in order to be able to watch it. And then once they do click on it, you're still going through the process of learning how to keep people watching your content for, at least a competitive amount of time. So if you're not getting a lot of impressions, what that actually translates into is that there's somewhere in that process, that chain of response, in terms of YouTube shows it to, a certain amount of people. Based on how those people respond to it, then they stop showing your videos to more people, or they continue to show your videos to more people. But in that particular chain, if people aren't clicking your videos, then of course, then it's impossible for them to watch your video and for you to get any watch time at all. So you have to start there. But if you can start noticing, okay, I am getting people to click on my videos when they're shown to people, then that tells you that the next step in the process that you really need to spend time working on is the process of getting people to watch your videos for a longer period of time. And that can come down to, your hook, like we were talking about earlier. It can come down to simple things like quality, like your audio might suck. And since your audio sucks, when people land on your video, they just split because they're like, oh, this is crap. I got all this other great content on YouTube that I can watch. But when I click on this, it's just a bad experience for me. So I'm just going to go click on something else that I can watch. It's going to give me a good experience. So, it's just, if you're not getting a lot of impressions right now, it just means that you're in that process of development, so to speak, of where you have to learn how to, correctly do those things with getting people to click and watch, which is, what streams like this, are made for, and content like all of us make is made for, to help you do all those things.
Yeah. And I think that these kind of streams really help bring in discussion and conversation about deeper topics. Like impressions is something that I think a lot of people, they just focus so much on the click-through rate. They forget that without impressions, the click-through rate means nothing. Because like you can have 100% click-through rate with one impression. And while that's great, you have 100% CTR, it was shown to one person. So,
and with the watch time thing too, a funny thing with that, like I have a video on my channel right now. It's got, it's either at like getting ready to hit 2 million or it's over 2 million views on it. But I've got like a 54 or 52 second watch time on that particular video. So, the reason for that is because for the amount of impressions that it's getting, the click-through rate on that particular video is acceptable, and the viewers are getting a good experience because they're getting what they came for out of that video, even though the watch time on it's abysmal. I mean, it's like a 2-minute video, but it's like a 52 second, if I'm getting 52 seconds, per person on average that's coming through that video. So, you don't have to get people watching your videos necessarily for, like 10 minutes, like a solid 10 minutes in order for them to show your content to people. It just has to be a good fit for, whatever the topic is for the people that are seeing that particular video. And you got to be able to get them to click.
I think what I tell people is like making the video is hard, but so is getting people to win the click. Like it looks easier than it really is. But if you understand your audience, I think that becomes simpler. So, someone asked, you say knowing your audience, why is that so important to help win the click? What can they do if they know their audience? How do they win the click by knowing their audience is what they're asking. So what are your recommendations? Like, I know my audience is about, let's just say, cooking cakes for someone in this group here. So let's say we are a baking channel. What would you focus on if you are trying to win the audience? That's what someone asked.
Well, even with a baking channel, there's different people, right? Are you in your audience moms, trying to make dessert every night for their family? Or is it, somebody who has a hobby or a passion in baking because they're going to be looking for a more detailed thumbnail because they're looking at a way to improve their baking skills. Whereas a mom specifically is going to be like, how can I do this really fast? So I'm going to be looking at thumbnails, quick, easy, simple ingredients that I already have at home. Whereas if you have a more advanced watcher, they're going to be looking for different aspects of that video. I'm not an advanced baker, so I wouldn't know exactly what those are. But those are two different. That's where it really comes into play, knowing who your audience is if you want to get that click.
And I think that goes into what you talk about a lot, Daniel, on your value proposition, like knowing specifically who you're targeting. So how do you kind of identify, like going with the baking example, you know, that the top level is you're going to be doing baking, but how do you like find and hone in? What would you recommend for someone in that case? Like how to really hone in?
Listen to your channel. One of the biggest mistakes that I see creators make is they get so wrapped up in making content and they just make content and they make one thing and in their heads, they're already deciding what they're going to make next. If you take a minute and look back at your channel, anyone can do this without diving deep into analytics. Go to your channel, go to the videos tab, rearrange and filter all the videos on there by most popular and look at the top 10 and see if you can find patterns, similarities. Are the lengths of those videos very similar? Do the thumbnails have a similar thing that of the ones that perform the best? Do they have any characteristics, the targeting, the packaging, the terms that you're starting to talk about? If you're a cooking channel and you talk about cookies, cakes, cupcakes, you name brownies, and you go and you reorder all the top performing videos on your channel and you find that the highest performing ones are cookies, then you start learning from your audience that they prefer to hear more about cookies than they do how to make pies or whatever the next thing is. So leverage those things and take advantage of them and listen to your audience and say, look, for every pie video I'm going to make, which I think is important to my channel, I'm going to make 2 cookie ones because those ones seem to perform better when I put them up in front of my target audience.
Yeah, and to put that in terms of TubeBuddy, we know that the free tools on average outperform anything that requires a license. So I use that similar strategy. It's like, I will give you an amazing paid feature and then 4 videos about free tools so you don't get mad at me.
Another thing, just a real quick tip for everybody that's wanting to know how you directly target people. You can also just straight up call them out too. If it's like cooking cakes, then you could do like cooking cakes for beginners, cooking cakes for moms in a hurry, cooking cakes in under 10 minutes for people that are in a hurry. You can literally just call out the people that you're trying to reach. You'll see in Daniel's videos, like he mentions Filmora a lot. There's always Filmora logos and things like that, so that as soon as somebody that sees one of his videos, as soon as they see it, they know, hey, I'm a Filmora person. This person's doing Filmora stuff, so I'm going to go and check it out. On my channel, YouTubers, like if you look at my channel, almost every single video has the word YouTube or YouTubers, either or both, in the thumbnail and or title, because what I want is any content creator, any YouTuber that happens to see my videos anywhere on the platform at any given time to know that my video is for them. So you can do things like that and just directly call out the people that you're trying to reach as well. Like Daniel, another thing that he could do in his situation would be, video editors. Like 3 quick tips for video editors if he was talking about like organizing files and like that sort of thing, because it would still, might be, people that would be interested in, that type of thing that he does as well. But just call people out.
One thing that people get wrapped up, and we talk a lot because I'm a utility channel. TubeBuddy's a utility channel. Nick's channel's a utility channel. Trina, I don't know how much you're kind of in there, but I think we all kind of fall into that. We have these very simple value propositions. By utility, I mean we answer questions, we provide information. There's a lot of channels that don't do that, and they think, well, that doesn't apply to me, but it does. I've got 2 channel members that I work with in my memberships group that have both been on the trending page for Creators on the Rise. And one was because that exact example. He's a barbecue channel. We got him focused in, and he found out when he talked about brisket, his videos blew up. They blew up. There's ribs and then there's chicken, but it was the brisket ones. We taught him how to double down and make more brisket content. One of the other ones that we have in there, Hank Hamilton of Hamiltonville Farms, he's got a 50 acre hobby farm, he calls it. That's a awfully big hobby for me. But
I thought my hobbies were expensive.
Woo, yeah, I know. Right?
Yeah.
But we found, but on his channel, when he would go out and find these big pieces of equipment, backhoes, excavators, things like that were in a field and never been started, he did these video series called Will It Start, where they dig them out and pull back the brush and see if they can get them started. And it wasn't based on so much a resource as much as it was based on compelling content. People wanted to follow him and go, I want to see if he can get this old monstrosity in this field started. And he was driving, 1 million, 2 million views on these videos. So when he found that out, he went, I'm going to make more Will It Start videos, and started finding every piece of machinery in his local township and state that he could go out to and try to see if he could get them started.
That's cool.
Nice.
And again,
I say that to myself every morning. Let's see if we can get this monstrosity started. As I stare at myself in the mirror and try to get my brain moving.
and that's where coffee comes into play. And I think it comes into play for all of us sometimes or the other. So I think that, you talked about something that's important. It's like really diving down to what your audience cares about. And sometimes that means that you may be passionate about one thing, but your audience really loves this. And it's like, how can you explore that even more? Speaking of exploring, someone was asking earlier, when you're doing research, do you ever focus on your competition, and do you ever focus on how much is too competition is what they're wondering. How do you say, that's too competitive for me? Because they're like right where they are, they're not too sure if it's too competitive or not.
You got to know yourself. Like you have to objectively look at yourself and what it is that you're doing and say, okay, the way that I do things compared to the way that they do things, like right now at this particular point that I'm at with, as a content creator, if I were to make a similar video to theirs, do I think that I would legitimately be able to make a more compelling package from the outside that would get me a click? If so, then is my content up to par in terms of just being competitive with the other people that might also be making a similar type of content? If the answer is yes to those, then go for it. If the answer is, you know what, even though, I don't know, then in that situation, try it. But if the answer is like, you know what, I'm still trying to work on just my audio sucks right now. And I'm still trying to figure out how to even structure my videos. So, because of that, let me go after a really difficult term later. But for right now, I'm just going to go for the low hanging fruit and go for a long tail keyword for the sake of, just getting the easy win instead of going for something, really difficult, even though you're going to have a lower amount of traffic. When you take that approach, you are giving yourself in my opinion, it's fantastic to be able to tap into a bunch of resources that will bring you a little bit of traffic, but it's extremely consistent traffic. Then have that one thing that you just keep trying. Maybe I can tap into this. Maybe I can tap into it. And you're not getting any traffic from it at all. Get your experience from the low hanging fruit, and then use that experience to get better at what it is that you're doing, so that you have a better chance at going after the more difficult terms. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, you got to throw Hail Marys from time to time. Just to make sure. Seriously, just give it a shot, because, from time to time, you also have to make sure that you're looking at yourself and what it is that you're doing in the right way, because you might be being too hard on yourself to where you're like, oh man, their stuff is just killer. There's no way I can compete. But in reality, people are responding to you really well. And because of that, you might be able to slide in somewhere and, take over a good position somewhere. Or just get recommended all over the platform.
Remember that, don't always think in terms of search in that sense. When Nick talks about, trying to see if you can compete out there, you're not always out there competing against other videos that are identical to yours. If you publish a video and you've got a decent amount of browse traffic, which means that your video will show up on someone's homepage right when they come onto the platform, that means that your video that could be about the will it start, tractor thing could be up against every one of us that you're looking at right now, who are in completely different niches. And you only have to be compelling and good enough to catch that person before they've dove into the platform. Because that's, you're not always up against your competition. You're up against whatever happens to be presented to that viewer based on their interests and watch history. So, like you said, the Hail Mary, absolutely. You only have to make a good video or a slightly better video than the competition, and you can slowly rise to the top.
Yeah, and that's also a point of building authority, I think that some of the best moments are when you take a risk and you find out, oh, I can compete and I can compete well. I think that the worst thing you can do is you don't even put yourself in the game. You don't make the video. You don't even take the risk. I think that's even more detrimental.
Here's a win, though. Here's something to always think about, though, when you're thinking of those Hail Marys, right? When somebody pops open their phone, this is all you have to compete with. If you end up being in one of these top spots, when, in somebody's home feed, when they pop open their phone, you're competing with one other person in that situation, or, maybe a few scrolls, maybe you're competing with 10 people out of the gate. It's not a lot of people, right? Same exact thing goes, on a computer. When a homepage loads, you're looking at, if you're on a 4K screen, then you're looking at maybe, 20 videos that you're competing against, maybe 25. If you're on a smaller screen, then you're looking at maybe, 10 other videos that you're competing against on page load. So, being compelling, like Daniel's talking about, can get you really far, because instead of thinking like, oh God, I'm competing against everybody on YouTube, but you are, like what you're actually, the only place that it really matters though is those places where you're actually being shown, and how can you stand out and be compelling against those other 9 videos that you're being shown against, or those other 3 or 5 or whatever it happens to be.
Yeah. And sometimes the reason that a particular topic or subject is saturated is because there's a lot of interest in it. So a Hail Mary may not be a bad play. It just shows you a lot of people like this. I'll throw my hat in the ring and see if I can get some clicks and views and impressions too. The only way to learn is to try it.
And speaking of trying, how do you find the time? This goes to Rob and Trina. How do you try to be compelling? What are your tips for how, when you think of things that are compelling, how do you try to do that?
When I talk about YouTube, it's a little bit different than just growing a YouTube channel. My focus is on generating leads and getting people, people who are watching my channel are figuring out how can they use YouTube as a lead magnet to get people into their business, into their funnel, work with them. I work with service providers and course creators. And so the way my take on YouTube is a little bit different than all the other YouTube education channels out there, and it's female ran. So that's where I feel like I have a little bit of a different take on it, and the way I can explain things is a little bit different coming from a woman's perspective. So that's kind of where my different perspective comes into play when I'm thinking about my content.
Yeah, I mean, with my videos, with my channel, I'm just going after search, especially with the Keyword Explorer. You guys were asking, where do you look first? I usually look in the unweighted score. Just because I just want to see in general, how competitive is this particular keyword, for my channel. And then I kind of look at the average views to kind of get into that keyword in the beginning. Again, just being really mindful of sort of where my channel is right now and how big the space is that I'm in. So yeah, that's really it. And then, just learning from you guys, keyword first, searchable keyword, and then the compelling part. So getting better with compelling title, that's more of the art than the science. So trying to, come up with really good sort of copy for the title on the compelling part of it.
And one thing I always think about is compelling things that all of us could do. Like if Daniel ever put, "Is Fillmore a 9 really worth it?" I'd be so compelled. I'd be like, wow, what is Daniel thinking today? But right. That's just an example. But another Daniel has a question, and that is, I'm number 1 with a really old video, but the subject is super simple, so there's nothing more really to say about that topic. Should I try to recreate that video, or do you think that would hurt? So this video they have, they're getting views from it, but they don't have much more to say on the topic. What would you guys recommend?
If they are still getting views, just because it was a good video 3 years ago, doesn't mean that it's still a good fit now. But if that video is still doing well, if that video is still getting views coming in, then absolutely recreating the video is a complete win in that situation. But you have to be mindful that you might be competing with yourself. But if you can make a better video now, then that video does have the potential to perform well, because you've already stacked up all of this information within YouTube of people that are interested in that exact specific thing from your channel. I worked with Oddly Daniel barbecue channel that we did the same exact thing. They had some chili content on their channel, and people really enjoyed that chili content. Same exact thing. That content was a few years old, but it was still driving a ton of viewers into the channel. And I mentioned that I'm like, okay, we got to remake this video, and they were like, oh no, I can't. I can't remake this. I'm like, just remake the video. And they remade the video, and it exploded. So taking that approach is a real big win. And the reason it's a win is because, YouTube is trying to show things to people that they are interested in. And those people are proving, as long as it's still getting views, those people are proving that they're interested in that topic. So when you publish that video, there's a really good chance that a lot of the people that watch that video for a fair amount of time and further engage in that video are going to get presented the new one as well.
Yeah, and I asked this question to all of you in the panel and those watching. Do you actually watch every single upload from every single creator you're subscribed to without fail? No. So the odds of the same person seeing the video, if they watch it again, great. But you're not always trying to target the people who are watching you. You're trying to reach people who haven't seen you. And that, going with the example, that chili cooking video might be exactly what they need. from you, and that is why it doesn't hurt to recreate it. I see Daniel Squared, which is both Daniels talking. The video is 5 years old, so I mean, if it's still getting you views, and if you are still passionate about it, or if it makes sense to be what your channel is about, because sometimes people can make a video from like 5 years ago, and it's like on a baby stroller, and their channel's all about woodworking, and there's like no clear tie, maybe you don't recreate that video. But I think if there is still interest, if you're still passionate about it and it still makes sense for your channel, then go for it. That's my big takeaway. What do you think, Rob?
Strategy. He does that in his 30-day challenges. He tells creators, go out there, find an older video that's still performing. But you probably, I mean, 5 years ago, I guarantee, Daniel, you are not the creator then that you are now. Your skills have improved. Your editing skills, your ability to tell a story, your ability to get to the point and make content that connects has improved over 5 years. So give it a shot. Give it a shot. That's the other thing is, I think people make content thinking that they're only serving their community. The community of the people that are in your chat, that are in your comments, the people who come back who are subscribed. But the goal of growing a channel is not always just making content for your community. They're already there. They're already invested. They like what you do. So don't always think like, oh, well, they may have already seen this. Why would I make it again? Because the goal is always to reach people who have no idea who you are, because that's how your channel is going to grow. We're trying to reach the audience who has no idea who you are. So make those videos, hit them again, come back around, smash it. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, move on to the next thing. See if you can find the next big hit on your channel.
And also on that as well, like to play exactly into what Daniel just talked about is like if you look at my channel for reference, like I've got God knows how many videos on like how to get views and how to get subscribers. Like I have a bunch of other stuff too, but I mean, like I make so many of those that like my stomach hurts when it's time to make one of those videos. But like Daniel's talking about, those are really good at getting in front of new people that haven't been to my channel before and bringing those new people into what it is that I'm doing. So because of that type of content, even though I've made, tons of them, that's still part of my strategy to help me get in front of new people that are at that very beginning point of like, okay, well, how do I get views on what it is that I'm doing? So, it's really important to always consider that you have your community that you have to serve, the people that are already involved in what it is that you're doing. And then you also need to continually be reaching out, because that's what actually grows the channel. Because if you're always just serving your community, then there's no room for growth, right? But if you're getting in front of new people, then the opportunity there is exponential. It's big. I don't know. It's like 1 a.m. here. I'm not sure, but you know what I'm getting.
Didn't you tell a story recently that your brother D accidentally made the same video twice?
Yes, and same exact video. Same exact video. Yeah, he made it 2 times. He basically had all the bullet points and the topic, title, everything. It was like the same video. He did it 2 times.
And it did well. So there you go. I mean, it just goes to show that you can make a video more than once, even if it's identical. And the people that subscribe to your channel today,
they haven't necessarily watched the videos that you've made even like longer than a month ago or longer than 2 weeks ago or even, last week. So, because of that, just continually putting out content and just balancing, like Trina was talking about earlier, balancing what it is that you're doing with what serves the people that are already involved and what gets me in front of new people.
Yeah. I think that balance is important. And this next question is about balancing. And this comes from, hopefully I'm pronouncing this, Dime Moore. And their question is, what is the main thing smaller channels with 100+ subscribers should be focused on when using Keyword Explorer? So I will pull that up now. And they're saying, it seems that the high score, don't worry, Daniel, you'll be on screen soon. It could be too competitive or not searched enough. So they're saying that they don't feel that when they look up something that they're saying that it's either too searched, and they're worried, from my understanding, they're saying that it seems that even with a high score, that it's too competitive or it's not searched enough. So what would we recommend?
Related. Go to the related. Yeah. Like so as soon as you put in that
something
keyword,
that searched a lot. I'm just going to look up something that looked a lot. So you said go to the related, right? So if I wanted to make my Nick Nimmin video.
Oh, great.
would D Nimmin be related?
I'm sorry, guys, the bag's out. YouTube says you're not related, Nick. So Nick, you are not the brother. That is YouTube. But I think related is very important. So a little more serious one. We had a couple of gamers asking about Fortnite earlier, right?
Mhm.
So Fortnite's going to be very competitive just in the nature of what it is, right? Like the number of videos is 187 million videos you're competing with. There's going to be new pieces of content every day. So I think what Nick is saying about looking at the related, because right now this is poor. Right? This is going to be very difficult, even for any of us to do very well in it. Like if we made a Fortnite video, it would have to be one, very specific to our channels, and two, it's understanding that just because something is competitive doesn't mean you can't find ways, which is where I think the related section really comes into play. So when I look at the related section, I think, okay, I want to do a video about Fortnite, but what do I want to do within it, right? And I think that's where you have to be the creator to not only know that, okay, I see this is too competitive for me. What can I do to stand out here? What can I say that helps me compete? Because going back to what we said earlier, just because something is competitive doesn't mean it's impossible. It's finding what you have to say that matches what people are interested in. And that's where being a creator first and thinking of your audience really comes into play. So what are your advice when it comes to trying to answer questions your audience have? You know, you said the related tab. Nick, is there any other places people can go to try to answer a question an audience may have?
Sure. But first, the one thing that I do want to remind you, when you are running into the situation where you're like, hey, everything that I look for, it's too competitive, or there's not a lot of search volume, flex your creative muscle, right? Like you're a creator, flex that creative muscle into this sort of thing as well, not just the video content, and start really trying to think, okay, like how, what other ways could I come at this same exact thing that people might be looking for this same exact thing that I'm talking about, but in other ways. So of course you can use the YouTube autocomplete for this, or you can do it directly inside of TubeBuddy, or you can go to Google and do it. But the idea is to just sit back. Sometimes like we get so invested in the actual software or whatever it is that's in front of us that we sit there and we think that we have to get the answer immediately out of that, where you might just need to sit back and say, okay, now let me think about this. If I'm putting into this particular way, if I'm trying to do like how to cook a cake, then maybe in that situation I need to start looking for like how to bake a cake, or maybe open up a thesaurus and, figure out, okay, here's cook. Now let's go into a thesaurus, figure out other ways that people might be looking, or other ways that you can say cook that people might be, looking for that type of thing, how to microwave a cake. I don't know, but, just start flexing that creative muscle and start trying to think of other ways that people might be looking for the same thing that you're trying to target, because you might be able to slide into it from another angle, so to speak. So, so do that, and then take that information back to the tool, because sometimes, I know for me, sometimes like if I'm trying to, come up with something, whatever the tool is that I'm using, like I'll sit there and I'll be expecting so much from the tool that I'll forget to use my brain. So, seriously. So like if you just sit back sometimes and you start thinking through, okay, like if somebody was trying to, figure out how to do whatever it is that I'm making the video about, or even if you're an entertainment channel, if somebody was looking to find my type of content, what are all of the different ways that they could possibly look, that they could possibly go to the search bar? Funny video, entertaining video, videos that make people laugh, compilation funny videos,
how to bake cakes.
Yeah.
How to cook a cake.
Different ways that people might be, looking for that sort of thing. So I know with Google, one of the things that they do, which is really cool, is if you go to Google and you type in whatever term it is that you're looking for, if you scroll down to the bottom of the page, they'll literally show you other ways that people are looking at it that isn't necessarily based on just like the autocomplete. It'll show you completely different phrases in terms of different ways that people are looking for things as well. And then you can take that information, start plugging it into TubeBuddy and researching that way. And that's why it's called keyword research, because you're researching, you're spending the time to actually, dig in and figure out, the best possible angles that you can take to get in front of the people that you're trying to reach.
Another real easy trick is if you're really hung up and you're a smaller channel and you're trying to find some things to make videos about, go to your competition, find the videos that are leading the pack and go into their comment section and see what the community around those bigger channels are asking. or the things that they watch the big video that's done well, see what their comments are. If there's a big, what are we talking? Bake a cake? I can't cook a chicken today. That's
chicken recipes. Let's go with it.
Bake a cake, video. But then, down in the comments section of this really high performing video, people are asking, what if I wanted to do it with chocolate, or how long, what type of oven? Does it make a difference if I use a convection oven versus like a propane, a gas oven? Then make that, the differences of cooking, look at what they're asking and make videos that answer the sub questions that are generated from those higher performing videos. And you can start looking and trying to, if no one else has made them, get out there and make them yourself, and follow up the big videos with the questions that people are asking around it.
Yeah, and find ways you can be your best suggested video. Like if you are baking, a lot of cakes, or cooking, don't want to offend Nick. If you're cooking a lot of cakes, then different ways you can cook cakes is a natural thing that YouTube would be like, oh, you guys are responding to this, let's suggest it. Because suggested is based on your viewing habits. A lot of viewers are like, why are my videos not being suggested? It's getting people to watch one video, and then the even harder thing is to convince them to watch another, right? So my question for like Rob, Trina, and everyone here is, how do you've made your baking a cake video. How do you try to get that suggested traffic? How do you try to lead them from one video to another?
Yeah, so comments, 100%. Reading the comments, what are they asking? I know for me, one of the biggest topics that continuously drives me traffic is first YouTube video or first YouTube video idea. So I'm thinking about different angles, like how to make your first YouTube video, how to find your first YouTube video idea, and then creating a playlist too, so that they are naturally going from one video to one video, so that YouTube then sees if somebody watches video 1, they're going to go to video 2 because they're in the playlist. So if someone finds video 1 on search, there's a higher chance that video 2 will be in suggested. So also thinking about your playlist strategy behind those topics as well.
Yeah, and also not wrapping it up at the...
I just want to highlight that really quick. Sorry, Rob. I just want to highlight really quick what she said about the playlist strategy, and I just want to unpack for a second, like how heavy that was, what she just said, in terms of what she's talking about is the simple act of getting people to watch videos together. Because YouTube, in their documentation, they tell you, if you go through the YouTube Creator Academy, it's 100% free. You should go through it if you're a content creator. But they tell you that they suggest videos that are topically related to each other. And they also suggest videos that people typically watch together. So what she's doing is she's taking the content that is topically related, she's putting that content into a playlist, and then she's driving people into that playlist where they are likely to watch that content together, which is telling YouTube not only are these videos topically related, but people are also watching these videos together, which then is increasing the chances of YouTube suggesting those videos next to each other because people are watching them together. Like, that's so heavy, like what she just mentioned. And like, everybody should just go listen to what she said, like rewind this and listen to what she said like a nice handful of times, because like just like that thing by itself in terms of your playlist strategy can be extremely, extremely powerful.
Exactly. If only there was a place to get tips with Trina. Check her out in the description down below. right? So good. But just have to do that. But I think that, like, again, that is really important. The strategies of the playlist. I think going back to importance, Rob, you were saying things too. What were you going to bring to?
No, I was going to say, like with all the videos, learning again from you guys is something I'm trying to do. Is just not try to end the video. Is just like specifically point them to the next video that actually makes sense from whatever video they're watching. So within your own channel. So at the end, not just leaving it to chance. So yeah, that's one of the ways. But again, it's one of those things. Going back to that, like, how do you not end a video? It's such a bad habit.
Again, cliffhangers. People don't like them until they do.
That's right.
I think a cliffhanger hits people because it makes them feel something, right? I think that's another thing that can help people watch all the way through, right? Like if they have a feeling that they can do this, right? Like I know with Daniel, people feel that they can follow along easily and learn these effects. Same with Nick, they can follow with all of us. Actually, they feel that they can learn what we're doing. That's why I built my whole brand about. If I can, you can too, right? But it's a mindset. It's a feeling. And I think that a good video makes you leave feeling something or making you believe you can do something, right? Mm-hmm. So that is something you always need to think about. Like, yes, I mean, getting people to the end is hard enough, but getting them to feel something is just as important. So this is a really, really interesting question I see a lot, and this comes from Heather Eats, and is shorter video better than one that's say 15 to 20 minutes when you have less than 500 subscribers? I see a lot of people thinking that if I just make a short video, it'll do better than a long video. In reality, I think it's based on how long people are watching, but what do you guys think?
I think they're asking the wrong question. I think that instead of looking at that, I think that because and we all do this, but I think that everybody's so caught on like, how can I kind of trick YouTube into giving me views by making that perfect length video and, hitting specific metrics and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, instead of thinking like, okay, should I make a video that's 15 minutes and then have this? And like, instead of going through that process, think, how can I make the best piece of content that's going to add the most value or impact or whatever it happens to be to the people that are watching my videos, so that when they watch it, they're going to, at the end of it, they're going to be like, wow, that was great. I want to come back on. I want to watch more of this. And I want to comment. And I want to tell this creator how awesome this video just was. And I'm going to give this video a thumbs up. And I'm going to make sure that I subscribe to this channel because it's awesome. And I'm going to keep coming back because they keep giving me awesome content every single time that I come back. So instead of thinking of it like, hey, should I be making, shorter videos? Should I be making longer videos? Experiment with it and see what your audience responds to the most, see what they like the most, and then cater everything towards that. So instead of looking for that answer, I mean, it's always good to ask, all the questions that you have, because that's how you learn things. But think at the like deepest level, think, how can I just experiment with all these different video links and start finding over time which ones that my audience responds to, so that I can focus all of my efforts, every single thing that I'm doing with my YouTube channel, giving the viewers the best response and making the content so that they'll actually know that it's for them, and so that they'll respond to it from the outside. They can identify it's something that they care about. And then once they click on it, it's something that they actually love. So they'll keep coming back for, and they'll even tell their friends about it. Like, that's the thing that you should be focused on, in my opinion.
Yeah, and looking at your audience retention graph, again, that's going to tell you how long people are watching your video. If you can create a 15-minute video and you're getting, 60% of people to the end, that's great. But if you're creating a 15-minute video and they're only getting, 5 minutes in, there's something off there. So you really need to be looking at that audience retention and seeing, are you giving good content the whole way through your video? I get asked that question all the time. What's the perfect length? When I come up with my content plan, I just know what I'm going to talk about. Like, I don't sit down and like, okay, how can I make this video 15 minutes long? What am I going to talk about to do that? I know the content that I want to share, and that's what's going to be in the video. Maybe it's 5 minutes, maybe it's 20 minutes, but it has to just be packed full of good content that makes people want to keep watching.
Is there one thing I do want to mention really quick, and I keep doing that to you, Rob. Go ahead, man. It's like right when Rob starts to start, I'm in.
I know. Oh, no. I was going to ask you guys. So is there a difference between a 5-minute video and a 15-minute video in terms of like the way that you structure it to keep the attention longer? Or is it like essentially just a longer version of a 5-minute video, the way that you structure to keep people engaged?
So one thing that I do want to mention really quick is I've noticed this on my channel, and I've noticed it across a bunch of other channels as well. And you guys can actually, look into this, because all of you guys have stats for, your channels and a bunch of other channels as well. Yeah. But one thing for channels that have high response content, not people that are like trying to figure it out, but channels that I've worked with that have high response content in terms of they're always getting clicked. They're always having people flood into their videos when they publish. They have a great community, all that good stuff. Those channels that have longer videos, when they publish a longer video compared to the shorter videos, and my channel is the same exact way, they tend to actually get more suggested traffic. So that's one thing that just seems to be like a commonality across the board from my experience. So you guys, will be able to see that on your end, and everybody watching this, look in your channels to see, look in your stats to see if you find a similar thing. But that's just something I wanted to bring to your attention. In terms of the structure, really it just comes down to like, Trina keeps bringing up in terms of your audience retention. The best way to give that awesome experience to the people that are watching your videos is to take the time. Daniel was talking earlier about looking for patterns in your thumbnails and your titles and things like that. Same exact thing goes to your audience retention. You have to look and you have to say, okay, out of all these videos, I'm literally going to get my notepad or my tablet or whatever it happens to be, and I'm going to sit and I'm going to go through the process of watching my videos and watching my audience retention. It's boring, and you're going to be like, oh my gosh, really? Is this a part of the gig? It is. Like if you're wanting to get, the results that you're after, yes, it's part of the gig. So go and watch your videos while you're watching that audience retention graph, and just start noticing, hey, I get little dips here, I get big dips here. I have people rewinding here, I have people, leaving in mass in these parts, and start writing down all the details of the things that you're doing, the things that you're doing right before those drops, so that you can start, getting an idea of the things that you're doing inside of your videos that are causing people to leave. And the better you get at that, the better you're going to get at making longer videos. But here's the thing, again, YouTube is focused on that viewer experience, right? So if with all of the metrics that they're keeping track on, if all of that accumulates to YouTube saying, hey, they didn't watch the full 15 minutes of this video, they only watched 5 minutes of it, but based on all the other things that they did, they're sharing this, they're adding it to playlists, they're coming back and watching the video again, even though it's only for the first 5 minutes of a 15-minute video. They commented, they're in threaded comments, they're giving the video thumbs up, they're sharing it on community feeds on their channels, that kind of stuff. If YouTube can identify that it's good content, people don't have to watch all 15 minutes of the video. They can just watch 5 minutes of a 15-minute video, and the video can still do fantastic. But of course, the goal is to keep people watching as long as possible. And that's why leaning on your audience retention is so important, or your audience retention reports is so important, because that helps you get people as far as you can through your content.
Yeah, and there's just to add on to that a little bit, when Nick says keeping people watching as long as you can, don't always think of that as a per video basis. There are metrics right inside of your analytics where you can see how many unique viewers you have on your channel, on your content, how many views per unique viewer. The goal is to keep them watching. And if your content happens to be content that people come watch the first 5 minutes of a 10-minute video, then move on to another piece of your content and watch 5 minutes of that and go, got it, move on to another 5 minutes, like they're on Nick's channel just learning the thing they thought they needed to learn, got it, and moved on. My channel's like that. I show them how to do the thing at the beginning. The minute they think they got a hint of how to do it in Filmora, their attention drops. They're all racing off to the software to get to try it. That's fine. You have to understand that you're just trying to do well for your niche and for the audience you're trying to reach. And that might be that your 15-minute video that seems to be all right, that they leave at 5 minute mark. Every other video that's similar to that, people do the same thing because that's the pattern of that viewer. They only tend to absorb X amount and then they run off and do their thing. But if you can get them to watch more of your content, the flashback to what we were talking about a minute ago, the most important thing you can do on your channel is not be screaming about, hey, hit the like button, oh, leave a comment, go do this. The single most important thing you can do in your content and on your channel is to try to get the viewer to watch more of your content, because that's what YouTube cares about the most. Do people come to your channel? Do they watch one piece of content? What are they going to watch next? That's all YouTube is thinking. Is the minute someone's watching your video that they're enjoying, YouTube is trying to figure out what to serve that viewer next to keep them watching. Try to be that next piece of content. Try to keep them engaged with your channel instead of letting them wander off to the next channel that might be recommended to them.
Yeah. And as Ike says, everybody knows the perfect length for a video is 10 hours. So we're all just going to nonstop record 10-hour videos. Let's see. Watch that be what works for all of us. And then we're like, you know what? Ike's right the whole time. But
there's been studies done to where people have, given, ideas of, what the ideal video links are and things like that. But the downside of that sort of thing is that it's kind of accumulating all these different types of channels together and, all these different types of personalities and creators and audiences and all that stuff. And it's compiling all of that stuff together. But it's important, and this is why you always hear everybody on the screen talking about making sure that you learn your stats and how to interpret your stats and things like that, because that's like the keys to the kingdom, because it shows you exactly how the people that are watching your content are responding to everything it is that you're doing. Literally everything. Like how good are you at getting people to comment? How good are you at getting people to click? How good are you at getting people to watch for an extended period of time? How good are you at getting people to share and that sort of thing? Like you can see it all inside of your analytics. Learn to use it. It can be it'll make a world of difference.
Yeah, and one thing I like to do is looking at some of the compare features in my own YouTube analytics and see how I was doing a year ago to today. Am I improving? How have I done better? A lot of times we like to look externally, but a lot of that comes back to, am I actually getting better at doing the things I'm striving to do? And that's a self-reflection thing, but it matters, because if you're not, it doesn't matter that if your content shows up in search, if you're not doing the things you need to do as the creator. But, there's a question here from Kevin's World. And I think we kind of answered this a little bit earlier, but it's should I try something hard with the risk of it not working and wasting some time? but original, or try to use an idea that fits my channel and is easy to make, but not better than a larger project, better than the larger. And I'm assuming they put project, but it just shows PROJE. So I'm assuming Proj, the larger Proj. That's
Proj.
French.
Oh gosh, we're talking about packages in Proj.
Yeah.
But what do you guys think about, again, that risk of doing something original versus, you know, doing something that you know fits the channel perfectly? Do you think that's like, what would you recommend for someone? Let's say this is their next video. They're trying to decide, should they take that risk and try something new, or should they just do something that's safe? How do you guys in your own do it all?
Do it all. You're going to make hundreds, if not thousands of videos. Do it all. Do it all. Try long videos, try short videos, try the hard stuff, try the easy stuff. Try, you know, remaking videos that you've made in the past that have done well. Try remaking videos that you've made in the past that tanked, because you might be able to do it better now. You know, try all the stuff. You're going to make so much content that, you know, that you have the opportunity to try a bunch of stuff, but just make sure that you're paying attention, you know, to how people are responding to what it is that you're doing when you're trying all the stuff.
For sure. Yeah. I think that, again, taking those risks is what makes YouTube part of the fun. And you know what else was a risk? This entire stream. Thank you, everyone, so much for joining us on the live stream. It has been fantastic. Rob, Trina, Daniel, and Nick, thank you all so much for your time. Everyone watching, hope you enjoyed the stream.
Always.
And for us, that's going to be it.